Welcome back to Hoefelhohman F.C. This is episode 9. We're at chapter 13. We're going to tank all the way through the end. Maybe it'll be a two-parter, though. I'll release it in 2 parts, but we're right now. When you maybe listen to part 2, we will have recorded it all right now. Gonna say stuff off the bat, though, instead of waiting till the end when people probably aren't listening. Leave a like, subscribe, but more importantly, if you have a book you want to hear us do, now is the time to leave the first comment on this podcast on YouTube and or Spotify. I post these on Spotify. The link is in the description. But also, go buy the book Bring the Noise by Raphael Honigstein. I am continually recommending my wife to read this book. She is a coach, so it's also relevant. Not just pushing my things that she doesn't enjoy on her. She is a soccer coach.
Has she just been avoiding it because she knows she'll like it?
No, not at all. I just keep going like, hey, you should read the book. It also helps that her head coach, she's one of the assistants, is a Liverpool fan. So, like, maybe if you get a little disagreement, you go like, well, Jürgen Klopp did it this way. Get a little more authority behind what you're saying.
I mean, he did know what he was doing for a long time.
And this is the chapter where he shows the world that he knows what he's talking about because he's on TV. And now this brings a little more understanding to me. What it was referencing. It kept mentioning Klopp and the World Cup, and I was out of the loop that this had happened in his experience on TV.
Right after I read this chapter the first time, like 5 years ago, like I meant to like try and find his commentary for what he's done in this chapter, and I just kept forgetting, and it just never happened. So it's on my to-do list to try and track it down and like just watch him do this, because like as we'll read, like, you know, a lot of the previous chapters that we've read is really like the layers of like his coaching career, but I feel like the last few of these chapters really sprinkle or like splash a lot of his like the life the in-betweens of life, you know, just like the things that you would not really know unless you like personally asked him, like, or he had told you or something, which is why it's nice when you read it in a book, because like, you know, the author's done his research. But it's cool to kind of see Jürgen Klopp just you get to see a bit more of him as a human and not just a coach, just doing all these other things. But
right, it
is a good chapter to see how he is still a fantastic public speaker, or just like a people person
and a genuine fan.
Yeah.
Into the book. In the years after Germany's win at the 1990 World Cup, commercial TV started taking an ever greater interest in the nation's favorite sport. SAT1 revolutionized the way Bundesliga highlights were broadcast on Saturday evenings by devoting as much airtime to the spectacles surrounding the pitch. Players' girlfriends in the VIP seats, angry club presidents, managers' sweaty armpits, as to the matches themselves. So it's ramping up. TV is, you know, it's not just, it just wasn't always like it. They weren't always zooming in on the German coach's, how you say his name, Joachim Low?
Oh, Joachim Löw, yeah.
You know, getting real close in on his nose, and he's digging for gold, you know. They're just showing the game.
About that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's like one of my first like memories of watching. I think that was the 2010 World Cup, which is why that's like a core memory.
Oh, man. That's hilarious.
I ask myself if anyone really wants to get valid information about the game in Germany, Klopp told Der Spiegel in November 2004. Does anyone want to hear they shouldn't have run more? They should have run in a smarter way. I doubt that. Maybe on some niche channel in a program for exotics. The time was indeed ripe for a change by then. Within 18 months, the Mainz coach would emerge as the main beneficiary of football's analytical void and as a catalyst for a transformation, winning awards for his punditry and the acclaim of Franz Beckenbauer, but unbeknownst to most, his overnight success on the box had been a very long time in the making. Now, I've already said, I'm just trying to remember because this one's not as fresh in my mind, but I know reading this chapter is just more examples of like this guy lived a movie life of just like the little things that are happening to him. Not long later, one of the club's players started an internship at a regional sports desk, Klopp. He was already the loudest guy in the room. A world champion in talking, says Martin Quast. Doetz said to him, Kloppo, if this thing with football doesn't work out for you, I'll make you director of communications at SAT1. No problem. Doetz was quite serious. So even when he's just interning, he's already
winning people over.
This is like I said. It said it was a long time in the making. People are already going like, "You're a personality, man. Like we could get you behind the desk with a mic and get the camera on you because people in real life are drawn to you. They just want to get that on the screen." And I've been hearing that ad nauseum because my wife and I have been watching a lot of Food Network Stars, which is a show where they gather people with talent for cooking, but the main thing is you need to be a TV personality while you present, and you have to, make sure you're connecting with an audience, connecting with the people watching you on camera, and not clearly watching the show. Not everybody has that. It can be a skill that you can develop, but even like you can, if you watch the show, like people progress rapidly, but they're putting in reps. They're high stress situations they want this thing. This dude doesn't want this. He just is. He just has it. He's not working towards it. But we'll get into it. He still takes his work ethic into this, but trying to get the best product. But he was pretty natural at it off the bat. For me, I have a big chunk here at 240, unless you've had any little notes you wanted to share before I give a little reading here.
Just a little note about the TV station SAT1 on 238, just with give you a little background on it. SAT1, the first privately owned TV station in Germany, had started broadcasting in 1985. Their regional office for the state of Rhineland-Palatinate was based in the capital Mainz, and SAT1 CEO Jürgen Doetz was on the FSV board. When the club was once again struggling to pay their bills ahead of the 1990-91 season, the TV boss stepped in to help out.
Yeah, that does a good job of painting the picture.
He made the SAT1 Mainz's shirt sponsor, which was a nice move. But I had a little note on that paragraph only saying only 1985 did this stuff start happening with football broadcasting and these kinds of sponsorships and like the attention and kind of what people like broadcasting, also just kind of gauging what people wanted to see and like how much that has changed over the years, which the chapter does also cover a little bit, and just how it's only really started like not that long ago. It's always just crazy to think that Germany as a nation has only been reunified since 1989 too, which is pretty much the 90s. Not that broadcasting wasn't happening until then, but like it was starting to take hold of football altogether and how it should be broadcasted and how it can get people watching all the same all the time. And Klopp was just like maybe like a small variable of helping football broadcasts to get into the right areas, because when I watch Bundesliga games, like it's pretty well done, and like I feel like they understand what football fans want to see with like highlights and what people look for and want to see.
Well, I mean, nowadays you have like CBS Sports doing, I think, some of the best punditry with the Champions League squad of Jamie Carragher, Micah Richards, and Thierry Henry. I'm thinking if you're going to add a fourth to that crew, you put Jürgen Klopp on there. I think he gets along with those guys because they just joke around.
He could totally do that. I feel like if they did do that, man, their viewing would increase.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's already like they already have stuff that goes viral. I think this is the clip that I want to play, but they do analyze the game, but they have so much fun. And that's what it's about. And it's just making fun of Micah Richards half the time. This is a reel here. I'm going to play.
Had you showed this one to me before?
Probably, because it's about...
Tonight, and he's got to get it out of his game. That is a horrific...
Oh my God, yeah, I did see this, yeah.
He obviously looks up to
anybody who pays attention to these guys.
Where do you think he learned it from, Micah Richards? What are you doing? What is that? I mean, look at it. Micah, what are you doing? Look at that. I have never seen anything like. Look what his boots are.
To have it just be gold, you're an ex-player, and to have Thierry Henry going, what are you doing, like in disgust, but it's also fun because Carragher was going in on, I'm not exactly sure who the player was, but it was a Champions League game, and he dove, and they're like, we got to get it out of the game, but they're like, but he looks up to Micah Richards, and they show the most outrageous dive aside from Neymar's 10 rolls in the World Cup. This is just in a class of its own. But Micah Richards is the guy guilty, and he's just laughing. It's just amazing.
He's able to laugh at himself.
Right,
man.
It's so great.
Because even probably him, he's just like, I don't know what, it's like some sort of weird reaction.
Right, Klopp would laugh at that too.
He would have some sort of pundit for that, right, for sure.
It's amazing. On page 240 here, I got a little long stanza to read. On 15th May 1992, Klopp's knack of talking himself into and out of tight spots delivered a genuine coup. One of the closest title races in the history of the Bundesliga had left league leaders Eintracht Frankfurt tied on points with VfB Stuttgart and Borussia Dortmund ahead of the final day of the 1991-92 season. Frankfurt's much admired Football 2000 team of Andy Muller, Uwe Bien. I don't know how, is that Uwe? Uwe Ben? Bine.
Yeah.
See, Bien, that's my Spanish 2 coming out from high school. And Anthony Yeboah, and a superior goal difference to their rivals. A win at relegated Hansa Rostock would deliver their first league title since 1959. Eintracht coach Dragoslav Stepanovic had ordered a media blackout on the day Frankfurt flew off to the northeast of the country. Everybody tried to speak to the immensely quotable Serbian ahead of the season's dramatic conclusion, but Stepanovic refused to do any interviews. SAT-1 sent intern Klopp as their secret weapon. The guy who always got things done somehow, but nobody knows how. He had played under Stepanovic briefly. That's the guy he was like, I thought this guy was amazing, but he's not. At Rot-Wein Frankfurt a few years earlier, but his key contract proved to be Mainz 05 teammate Heinrich Weib.
Oh, Henrik Weiss.
Weiss. That's an S sound German, with that little B
that German letter there is two S's
Weiss,
technically.
Whose mother worked as a press officer for Frankfurt Airport. She allowed Klopp through security and all the way to the doors of the plane, where he interrupted Stepanovic and obtained the only pre-match interview in the whole of Germany. See, that's the movie stuff I'm talking about. Yeah, he puts in work.
It's so like under the radar too. I mean, like it's not blowing up.
He's
it's just
an intern. He doesn't. This isn't his dream. No. There's a tight title race in the Bundesliga, and nobody's able to get to this guy. He's ordered a blackout, and he just walks in. Oh, I know this person from my brief time here that didn't work out, and I know this guy's mom, and she lets me in, and this coach knows me, just happens to be in this title race, and I happen to be an intern right now doing this, and then I just walk and get the only story in the whole country. He's breaking stories as a sports journalist, pretty much, which isn't something that happens too often, especially when you're an intern. Like, you don't get to do the big stories, but it's Klopp, man. It's Klopp.
And it's not like he was doing this all the time.
Right. It's not like, yeah, exactly. This isn't like what he wants to do. He's trying to be he wants to be a pro.
This is my plan B.
But this is just what he does. This is what he does. Now I'm back. I'm on the bottom of 241 now. Breitner at the first was reluctant to share the stage with Klopp because he's the professional. Klopp's trying to get on TV. He's on TV now. And Rangnick. Oh yeah. Oh no. This is an interview. They got two Bundesliga 2 managers, and you got like a German international. Like, I don't want to talk to these guys, but this is Klopp just doing TV magic. Mm-hmm. At first, he was reluctant to share the stage with Klopp and Rangnick. Producer Jürgen Kraus. Then they were second division coaches. What did they know about the national team's problems? The former Bayern Munich and Real Madrid midfielder, in the end, agreed to sit down with these relative nobodies, which is just a funny sentence. Nobodies.
Which they were at one point.
I know they were, but we have hindsight now of these words, which is, it's just crazy. Prompted by presenter Rudi Bruckner, Breitner suggested a flurry of partially contradictory reasons for Germany's fall from grace, including too much pressure from the German FA, an absence of long-term planning by the authorities, and a weak mentality in the Nationalmannschaft.
Genau, yeah.
Okay. In the national squad. Which is just... It's funny that it's a weakness of mentality, which maybe they could get used to, but this isn't... I just wanted to intro what's about to happen here, because I'm about to read even more.
Yeah, let me hop in there with the second paragraph.
Okay, because I got pretty much down to 243, the whole page.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was gonna. You can start us off though.
Oh, okay. So 242, Rangnick in a gray shirt over a black T-shirt, like an off-duty graphic designer, and Klopp grew in confidence as the program progressed. Between them, they quietly pinpointed the two most important reasons for German football's problems: weaknesses in youth development and the failure to understand football as a collective game. Wow. I mean, like, you can't help but underline that. It's maybe a similar problem that's kind of going on here in the States. Young players get 10 hours a week training, and the club caretaker decides if they're allowed on the pitch during school holidays, says Rangnick. We have to get them to train 30 to 40 hours per week. He went on to explain that young professional players, too, expected to keep on learning their trade, instructed by coaches who put on the proper training sessions, treat them respectfully, point out mistakes, and aim to develop them further. And that paragraph out of the whole thing was just like, it was so on point for me. I'm just like, that's not that I was there when it was just like, yeah, that's the problem. It was just like, at this point when I read the book the first time, I was coaching a different U14 team with Kyle, and him and I pretty much, we bonded a little bit over like how this book made a lot of sense and what him and I were doing with the team that we had. And we're just like, look, if you guys want to get much better with, the expectations that we have in mind, you guys need to be training and doing stuff outside of training to get this much better.
Right.
And it like the boys, for me, I always felt like they never really understood what we were on about.
Right.
Just kind of like, why would we train more than we have to? Like, it's just travel soccer. Like,
right.
Why would we
But
do
you had
that?
some of them going like, I want to be a pro. So it's like, I'm not going to lie to you.
I never said that out loud, but I'm just like, dude, like high school soccer, like you could be the best player there if you wanted to be.
Right. Well, I mean, I know like
what it takes.
To name the infamous name Jonas. He said, I want to be a pro. And I said, well, he's like, do you think I can do it? So, roughly was the conversation. I said, yes, I kind of believe anybody can do it. But are you going to put the work in?
Right. Yeah.
If you don't put the work in, then no, you won't do it. But if you come to me after a year and go, man, I've trained each and every day and done this, and that. I've seen my 2-mile time go from 17 minutes down to 12 minutes. My juggling went from 20 touches to 100 touches. Last year, whatever position you're playing, like what goals are you making to do that? What are you improving for the team? Just are you putting the work in? Or do you come to the game and tell me, Coach, I was up all night playing Call of Duty, and now I drank a Red Bull before the game.
Right.
No,
that's
you're
the
not.
opposite.
You're not going to be a pro if
Right.
you approach it that way. But you can if that's what you want to do, and that's kind of the conversation I had at the youth group of like, is it a dream or have you made your dream a goal? If it becomes a goal, then you're actually actively working to accomplish the dream.
Right.
But if it's just a dream in the sense, it would be really awesome to be a pro because that sounds really cool. If the dream never becomes a goal, the dream will never just fall into your lap.
I also just think a lot of kids don't understand what it means to be a professional, so their idea is a little fantasized probably if they don't know. But
also, that doesn't mean... I think you can put the work in and maybe not make it. That's possible. But...
will you have become a better soccer player?
You will become the best possible player you could have ever been. You will have no doubts because now you're not thinking about what if. The fact that you put in that work is going to make you a much more effective and confident person that you know how to put the grind and you know what it takes. Right. And it's going to unlock doors for you that I can't even speculate on because you've gone through that journey. You're going to understand yourself so much more and how you work and actually probably discover the thing that you actually want to do because you now know how to do those kinds of things. Like, it doesn't work out for everybody. And you can look up the story of a guy named Inky Johnson who came up in poverty. I don't remember the state that he's from, but then he eventually, like, him and his cousin was like, we're going to make it in the NFL. And we're going to, get out of poverty and, we're going to help our families and whatnot. And it started with them just doing street races, from one block to the end, no shoes kind of thing, to a guy coming down the street and seeing them, getting involved in organized sports, to, getting out of this high school where, the security guard letting them in is like, you're not going to amount to anything. And then they're like, no, this is a good opportunity for you here. And he's like, I want to transfer to this other school because I want to, I have to play. And that was a big risk. And then he gets into Tennessee, which is D1 football, SEC kind of stuff. He's the starting corner. He's had a certain amount of picks and then just goes up for a routine hit. And, he's about to get up and his body's not moving. His boys come over like, dude, we need you. You got to get up. And before he knows, like, he's in the hospital. He has like a near-death experience. And then the doctor's saying, you can't play football anymore.
Oh, shit.
Right. And he was prospected to get drafted the next year after this season. He just had to make it through 8 more games. And you're getting a contract. You're a millionaire. Wow. You buy your mom that house that you worked so hard for. But what's this guy do now that doesn't stop him now? He understands who he is. a guy who's gotten to that point's not going to let that stop him, and he becomes a motivational speaker, which is why I have that message kind of ingrained in me. I've listened to it a few times, but he has a purpose still. He still is out there working just as hard as he did for football, but towards making sure people understand the truth of how life works.
Help other people understand that pathway.
So even through maybe not making to the NFL, which was the dream, still living a full, purpose-filled life to the fullest that he can. So yeah, you may not make it to be into the Bundesliga or wherever you want to be, but if you go for it with the amount of work that it would take, it's not going to go to waste. It definitely won't. Back to the book. Breitner protested that Bundesliga pros were, by definition, so good that they didn't need to be taught the ins and outs of the game. But somehow the national team is struggling. Least of all by self-appointed modernizers and upstarts who have never played at the highest levels themselves. I don't want to put anybody down here, he said, feigning diplomacy. But the individual quality of the best players is so high that many coaches won't be able to keep up. You learn from looking at your peers at this level like I learned from looking at Franz Beckenbauer and Gerd Müller in training at Bayern. You don't need a coach to explain to you why you only hit the outside of the post from 20 meters rather than the inside, or point out a small technical mistake. Klopp was moved to object forcefully, but an advertising break spared Breitner the ignominy of getting contradicted live on TV by a bespectacled, profusely sideburns coach from Mainz 05. When the cameras returned, Klopp smiled beatifically and joked that the shooting technique in Bundesliga 2 wasn't that bad. In any case, he added, what's much more interesting is improving the team as a whole, preparing each player so that the combination of them all functions well. Klopp readily admitted that he hadn't been the best of players, more of a second division warhorse, but why should that disqualify him as a coach? Yes, I teach them more than I ever knew, he cheerfully agreed with Bruckner.
What a thing to say.
Yeah, man.
I teach them more than I ever knew.
I think we all accomplished that when we all coached together. I definitely taught more than I ever knew and constantly said, you guys are better than I ever was when I was your age. And they're like, but you're good. Like, we see when you train with us. Like, I'm like, dude, you guys are better than me. You have to realize you're better than me. Even right now, just being here as a coach in this scrimmage, I just won it more than you.
Right.
Back to the book. I'm on 245. We can always go back if you have anything else. ZDF's big name for the two major tournaments on German soil was Franz Beckenbauer. But as head of the organizing committee, he would only be available for a few broadcasts. Gruschwitz, Beckenbauer aside, we didn't have anyone at Netzer's level, and we couldn't pretend to either. The only way out was to do things very differently. Sounds a little bit like Mainz, and they're like, who's going to coach the team? We've got to try something new. With a referee as an expert, Urs Meier, with Jürgen Klopp as an analyst, on a new tool, a touchscreen that combined video images and the ability to draw on top of the frames, and to do everything in front of a live audience in Berlin. Klopp didn't have to deliberate too long about the offer. Gruschwitz came into my living room and asked whether I could see myself working as an analyst. All I said was, I can watch World Cup games. Then I asked whether my two sons could get free tickets. He said yes. That made the decision easy. It would make my decision that much more easy too. It's not exactly why I tried to do a play-by-play on Liverpool versus Nottingham Forest, but I've had friends in the past, more of a jokingly manner of how it came about, going like, just doing like a for fun play-by-play of one time when I still lived with Jared, he was playing, I think he was playing StarCraft or something.
Oh, God.
And
He
I
was
just
doing
start. I just.
play-by-play for that.
I was doing play-by-play commentary, but much more jokingly because that game I wouldn't be able to analyze because I was never any good at that. If it was Company of Heroes, I could do some ins and outs. It just happened that way, and I just did like a fake, well, here, John, you can see him that he's building these tanks here, but that's not going to work. But we've seen him behind the scenes. He's been working on this. We got to walk with him, and he's been working on this play behind the scenes. He's putting in the hours. Now he's going to see if this comes to fruition. He's going with a little bit of a tank rush here, and it's going to catch him off. I was just making it up in that kind of voice, which is a more funny,
very convincing, though.
More funny and entertaining than probably what I just did on the live stream. But I was trying to it was more just I wanted. Just if somebody wanted to know what was happening and they don't have a TV, they don't have. I don't know where to get those other than maybe there's probably other YouTube channels that do it that I haven't looked into, which I hadn't thought of. So next time the World Cup's on and I can't watch the game, I'm going to YouTube first for play-by-play because I'll be at work during those games, sadly. But man, if somebody ever asked me to do it, it would be an easy decision because I love to talk about the game and I love to watch it. So I don't even care if I'm not qualified. I'm saying yes, which is maybe Klopp felt he wasn't qualified, but I get to watch the World Cup. I'm in. I don't need anything else in my life. Free World Cup games. The ZDF executive had one grave concern, however. I knew he could analyze a game, there was no question. But would the TV viewers believe a second division coach talking about international football at the highest level? Was the gap between Mainz and Brazil not too wide? Beckenbauer seemed to think so. So you got another guy thinking he's too good, but this is just a TV analyst. The Bundesliga pro, the German national team pro, thinks these guys shouldn't have a say, and now an analyst who's at the top of his game's going like, who's this Klopp guy? It's not gonna make the connection. A couple of matches into the Confederation Cup, Beckenbauer was totally in awe of Jürgen. Beckenbauer's approval was like getting knighted for Klopp. If the Kaiser thought he knew his stuff, he really knew his stuff, says Jan Doling, who worked as an editor on the shows. There had been no trial run. Jürgen just got up and did it. He's a natural. Which is what we have been saying. He's just kind of a natural. And anything when it comes to social aspects, and people are drawn to him, as they say. He could be a salesman, he could be president.
Doesn't care what other people think, so he's just able to be himself and says what he knows, and that's it. He kind of just like in those two things, he's just able to slide into situations and just do the thing. He's able to just combine those things for a fluid trial run, or just whatever. Just people are able to just. There's something very truthful about just the way that Jürgen acts and speaks to people, and then I think people kind of have this subconscious analyzation of his character, and it's just like, oh, this guy is just like he's never gonna lie to me, so like I'm just gonna listen to what he says.
Authenticity is a selling point. At a World Cup, you don't just get the footballers' supporters. Entire families sit in front of the television, including many people who don't really care that much about football in day-to-day life. He was perfect for getting the game's intricacies across to those people, too, in an informative and entertaining way. That's who he is. It's a gift of his great talent. Gruish also goes on. He had a lightness, an assuredness, and an authenticity that immediately won over everyone, including Pelé, who was an occasional guest on the World Cup shows. He took a shine to him as well. So, I mean, you gotta win anybody else over at this point. If anybody else is giving you shtick for what you're doing, like, dude, Pelé likes what I'm doing. Pelé likes what I'm doing. To me, that's like if I'm doing analytics.
I'm sure Jürgen was freaking flattered, dude.
And Messi goes like, "Hey, dude, I really like the way like you talk about the game." Be like, maybe it'd be bad for my ego to hear that, but I wouldn't need to prove it to anybody else ever.
Yeah, I would have to know. Yeah, that would be interesting. I can't even imagine that. Yeah.
But like I said, this guy's life is a movie. Klopp relaxed yet substantive. I'll restart that. Klopp's relaxed yet substantive style of punditry changed the way we look at football in the ZDF office. The former teamy boss reveals, Doling agrees. He taught us how to analyze. The first and most important thing I learned from him was that there was not one absolute truth. You don't look at a clip and only see one particular thing. It's open to interpretation. He also said he had to see a game 2 or 3 times. You couldn't really see things clearly the first time around. You might see that there's something wrong, but you won't see what is wrong immediately. And I was like, damn, I should have watched our games 3 times when we had the film.
Oh, yeah, dude. Me and my other coach right now for our teams record some of our trainings, and we've recorded a scrimmage against our boys' scrimmage against the first team out of 3 teams for the same age group. We had scrimmage them the other day on a Wednesday, and we have footage of it, and we have watched it like 3 times by now.
Good,
and
dude.
It's just one of those footages that you have to just keep going over, and like it just said, you don't really realize what is wrong immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But then like in the middle of the second time watching the same game, you're just like, oh yeah, okay, like our center backs just weren't pushing up high enough when we pushed the ball up, or like something so freaking simple, and you're just like, oh, all right, well, we can fix that.
Yeah, that's how I felt about watching the Liverpool game. Well, I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't watch it 2 more times. I knew the offense wasn't in sync. The ideas were there, the movement was there, but it wasn't being executed. I can't tell you exactly why it wasn't being executed, just off the top of my head, because I didn't go back and watch it again, and then again.
Well, now you might.
I only have so much time in my life. That's why if I could do stuff like this full time, I would have time for that. But just going to keep trucking along and doing the things I feel I need to do. If you had played First Division football, you were meant to be a First Division coach. If you had played Second Division, you were a Second Division coach. That's how it used to be. What Klopp did was to demonstrate in front of millions of people that knowledge could be gathered, that coaching was a trade that could be learned. You serve your apprenticeship, you graduate, you get to the next level, you take another exam, you develop step by step until you become a coach by virtue of what you can do on the sidelines, not what you have done on the pitch. A whole generation of young managers who have never made it to the highest levels as players was inspired by that. Klopp's results with Mainz and his triumphant stint as the Furnish Bundestrainer, TV's national manager, opened the door for even more anonymous coaches to succeed in the Bundesliga. Men like Thomas Tuchel, Champions League winner, and Julian Nagelsmann, German national team coach, currently, realized that their limited practical skills were not necessarily a bar to progress. So, if you read that in the past, maybe that wasn't as groundbreaking, but now with the accolades that these guys have,
5-6 years later,
this statement is true.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like Will Still.
And what's his face at Brighton?
Yeah, 31 years old. He's us.
I feel ashamed because I've looked this guy's name up so many times.
Yeah. Let's do him justice. I'll open up FootMob. We'll get his name here. I feel bad because he's doing good, man. He's 6th in the Premier League right now. Fabian Hürzeler.
Okay, yeah, that's the one.
I mean, he played. He was at Bayern Munich 2, Hoffenheim 2, 1860, Munichen 2, then to the first team, and then FC Pippenschried. But the Regionalliga for that other one, I don't know what league that is.
I have no idea.
And then this team is in Bundesliga 3, the 1860 München.
Right, yes.
So I think Bundesliga 3 was as far as he went. And then clearly, like, you're our age, you could keep playing.
Well, I think...
I don't know if you got hurt or anything.
I think the Bayern second team is in League 2.
Not currently.
Oh, they're not? Okay.
The Regionalliga is below Bundesliga 3. So he was in Bundesliga 3. Higher than anything I've ever done. But, Will Still is still doing the thing. It's just a football manager guy. Crazy. But still, yeah, that just goes to say, which I could have used this book when I started with you guys, because I played rec. I played a lot of soccer outside of high school, but didn't play in college. Right? Like for the college team, I didn't play a college team. Played a bunch after high school, which is what made me the player I am today. That's not a statement, just it's who I am. I'm not saying I'm amazing. But if I had decided that was the definition of me, I would have turned you guys down when you... Luckily, I was willing to. But yeah, it was a little overwhelming for me. Like the first practice, I was like, we didn't do training sessions when I coached rec, dude. It was just like, let's just have fun. It's rec. Like,
yep.
There's only so much to teach. There's only so much to teach. And then, well, not too long into it, they sent us a guy who was like the leading scorer at Franklin and Marshall to be the head coach of the team. I'm like, dude, what is this? Like, nobody ever gave me a real coach when I was in rec. But this stuff was going over their team. Like, these kids didn't care. Which is like, to each their own. But I was like, all right, why are we here? Like, I don't need to be here. But then I had only got into JV coaching because Angelo knows me. And
Angelo was coaching the team already.
He was the head JV coach. Gino was JV or varsity coach, obviously. And then Angelo needed an assistant, and he asked me to, only because he knows me and we should talk soccer. So he knows, like, I like the game and stuff. But, like, I didn't play JV. I didn't play varsity. I was definitely underqualified, but that gave me experience. So sometimes you have to have connections. And then you guys, I never ran a session, so didn't learn too much of that other than I try to motivate people and make connections with them. And
I mean, you had some ideas for how the session should go, and we did those things.
I had a little bit more knowledge when I came with you guys, but like
you had some good leads during the session.
It was still a little bit above me, and I still had like past anxieties from, when you guys would put a new drill in, and then, oh, hey Nate, we need you to go in. I remember this would happen to me when I played football in middle school. Like, they walk you through what you need to do. I don't get things when you walk me through it one time. Like, I have to just fail a bunch of times until I get something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But I don't know how to articulate that. I'm just so nervous, and like people are just like yelling, and everything's like going by me 100 miles an hour. And I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then just a simple drill, like it goes to this cone, around this cone, to this guy, and then you go here. What? Dude, that does not stick in my brain. I gotta walk through it 1 mile.
Learn things differently.
Right. I gotta walk through it 1 mile an hour, and I had to do that in the training session. And I'm the coach. Like, I don't know what this drill is, coach. Help me. I'm like, now I have to learn this before I can show you anything. But that helped grow me, because it's just like, I'm not gonna pretend that I don't have to learn it this way, because I didn't bring this drill. Like, if I bring one, I've studied it, so I know it. But, Kyle implemented it. I'm like, I don't know what we're doing. Like, and he goes through it once and then like, why doesn't this kid know it? I'm like, Kyle, I don't know it. Like, I have to learn it here, but like once I learn it, I'll help people get along. And but then that helped grow me, because when you have a healthy relationship with how you learn, which is what I was talking about, and if you're going to try to be a pro and you put that kind of work in, you're going to learn how you learn, and that's going to help you tremendously in life. So luckily I was at a point where I know that I need to just be willing to look like a fool, get it down, and then now I'm good. And then that helped give me confidence in watching you guys run sessions, and then actually going like looking up stuff. You got to do research, like it's saying, gather information. All right, I need to transform this back line. What kind of drills can we do so we stay tight, and then we expand when we need to, and work on recognition on who needs to go press at the right time. And then all of a sudden I felt like I was able to recognize problems and find things to help find a solution, and demand a certain intensity during the practice, freeze it when you need to freeze, and give some instruction to somebody maybe off to the side. And it makes me, I'm looking forward to the day where time, like, I know it's going to open up, because I feel it in my bones, and I'm going to coach again.
I can already tell.
It's a part of me, but I know I can't right now, and I'm at peace about that. But I know it's going to come with time, and I'm going to gather more information. I've gathered a little bit more just sitting on the sidelines a bit, grown as a person too. So,
and reading
reading books, gathering information, and you know what I've not done since then? Like, go up the chain of playing ability. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gathering knowledge. I'm not getting so much better at the game physically. But that doesn't mean that, now you can't increase yourself as a coach. You can.
Right.
And obviously it's being proved at the highest level. Tangent over. Within weeks, many of Jürgen Klinsmann's most controversial methods, more proactive goalkeepers who enabled a higher defensive line, core stability exercises with American fitness coaches, a strong emphasis on personality development, and help from sports psychologists became accepted practice in the top flight. So you have new ideas also making its way into Germany. If you have any notes, now would be the time, because I don't have anything else underlined for the chapter other than just, Klopp is a hit on the World Cup stage, man, and people are seeing him as an authority.
With just how he was broadcasting.
Yeah, just how he was broadcasting. Yeah. It's, I had to just pick and choose. I'd love to read the whole thing, but
well, I mean, just again,
he took advantage of a thing given to him here.
Yeah, like this chapter only makes me want to go onto YouTube or the internet and try and look up any kind of record of him giving analyzation towards these games and the World Cup games, because it says he's done some punditry at the 2010 World Cup for RTL, and I'm just like, I gotta find those. I want to watch him do that, because I love watching him. He's such a treat to watch, man. But I think that would conclude that chapter. Yeah. Going on to chapter 14.
Now here we start. It's just going to be sad from here on out, but in a beautiful way. These are going to be beautiful, sad, happy tears.
It is going to be
60,000 tears to be exact.
Right.
Is the chapter title.
Mine's 2007 to 8.
But break for 1 second here. Just let it be. Gonna get some more air.
That sounds good.
All right. Just took a little break there to crack some windows. Get some air in here. It's a little toasty. But yeah, this is the end of Jürgen Klopp's Mainz coaching career in this chapter 14.
Or are you going to start from the first paragraph?
If you have the first paragraph, you can include it. I was going to start on the next page.
Oh, well, I'll start the first page. In May 2007, a few weeks after Jürgen Klopp's first relegation as a player or manager, he was running a youth hostel in rural Thuringia, right in the former death strip of the inner German border. Temporarily, Klopp had taken the Mainz 05 squad to a similar non-mod cons hut for a team building exercise 4 years earlier, and the run-up to the promotion-winning 2003-04 season. The Back to the Woods trip with the 2007-08 players was supposed to have the same positive effect and outcome.
Which we touched on before. Them just like having to rough it and come together and do a bunch of stuff that, you know, makes you bond. Stuff I've seen in like
outside of soccer, yeah.
In anime.
Right.
Like you guys got to make your own dinner.
What's the meaning
Somebody's
of alchemy?
Cutting the carrots and prepping the food. The injured guy stays back and stirs the stew and all that.
Yeah.
Before we get any further, man, do you mind if I get one of those beers?
Yeah, all you, dude. Go for it.
Cheers, mate.
Prost.
Should have been preemptive and bought 2 Das boots.
Well, we know where to go for those.
Right.
30 men were sleeping on bunk beds in one room. The day started at 6 in the morning, with Klopp blaring out German Schlager music, Guten Morgen Sonnenschein, on a boombox. I'll never forget that, says Nevin Sobotish, even though he can't remember quite whether that oral pleasure consisted of the original acoustic version by Greek singer Nana Mouskouri or Irene Shearer's cover from 1989. Now, just to add to that a little bit, so German Schlager is a genre of music that is no German wants to admit that they like, but as soon as it's played, they're bumping to it.
Is that like everybody sings Sweet Caroline, but they say it's overplayed?
Kind of like that,
that's overplayed.
Yeah. So
everybody will do it no matter what.
There's so many. There is a huge pool of Schlager music, and it's like a combination of like if you were to combine genres to make this genre, it would be like, oh god, it would be like country and pop and like with a little like psychedelic 80s touch to it. It's just
you had
like
something pulled up there, did you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I pulled it up so I could like, I don't know if it's the best example, but this is the song that he played.
It's like, we're not monetized, so
yeah,
it's whatever at this point.
And why I can see Klopp just playing it as
like,
loud as
right,
possible with a grin on his face. Yeah. We were totally shot every morning, but we had to get up, make our own breakfast, prepare lunch and dinner, peel the carrots, that sort of thing. Midfielder Milorad Pekovic was injured. He couldn't join in the exercises. Games in the woods where we had to cooperate to achieve a common goal, so he was the mother of the group. He stirred the gigantic soup pot for a few hours until everybody came back in for lunch. Just this whole bonding trip, I feel like maybe I honestly don't know if coaches did this sort of thing before, this example, but it definitely started kind of attracting getting some traction with like some other coaches wanting to do similar stuff. Because I remember that coach for Huddersfield, I think his name was Wagner. He's like American German coach who had coached Huddersfield for a little bit. He had taken his team on a similar kind of trip. I think it was like kayaking or canoeing or something, but it's always kind of cool to see teams do that kind of stuff, because you really do get to know your teammates. I feel like if you go out and do that kind of thing out of the comfort zone, out of the normalcy of like the football culture and like the training grounds, but being around the same people and just doing different things together. And I'm sure you have more experience than I, like getting people to do like with getting people to like to I don't know. You do like youth group and stuff, so I feel like you have like more of an idea of like how these kinds of things go down. And you had done a few trips to, where was it, Venezuela?
El Salvador.
Yeah. And maybe you've done things there too. I'm not really sure. But I don't know. I just think it would be super cool if I was like a player and the whole team is just going to go do these things.
No, dude. Like if you spend a week traveling with a group of people, not even like who you're connected with when you get there, because obviously a mission trip, that's what you're doing, but the group you go with, the team, like it helps me grow really strong connections with people very rapidly. The people that I've gone with, like that connection stays with you even afterwards.
Yeah.
So it does the job, and I imagine even roughing it more, like it builds a bond and you remember it. It becomes like a core memory for you. So it does work, going on a trip together and having to do all that.
Yeah. Where did you want to pick up next? I have two.
Yeah, I thought I knew where Wagner coached now, but
he was at FC Basel in Switzerland for a little while too.
Okay.
I'm not really. I think he might be back in the Premier League somewhere, or at least.
I thought he was at Leeds or Norwich, but not.
No, I think it's a second league team, honestly.
Okay. Well, I don't want to digress on that too much, but I'm still on 254 here.
Okay.
On the third paragraph. In the second division, the playing style, the work of the coaching staff, has a much bigger influence on success and failure than in the Bundesliga, where individual quality by the opposition can ruin the best plan. Which is true. You can have a great plan, and then Messi can beat 5 people. It happens.
That's the good scenario.
Right.
The bad scenario is like somebody's ego just been like, oh, I can beat all these people, and then
right. But that's kind of the best you want to make them have to beat you like that. That's about a successful plan. Obviously, it's not successful if you lose, but if you make Messi have to beat 5 people and then also get a 30-yard upper 90, it wasn't your day, man. It wasn't your day. But he doesn't do it every game. So if you make him have to do that and not the easy way of playing straight through you with interchanging play with the rest of the team, you want to, or for like a Bill Belichick analogy, dude, they want to make, if they're going to lose to you, you're going to do it the hard way, man. Your star receiver is not going to have any receptions. He's going to be doubled or tripled all game. So whatever your game plan is, you got to find a new way to win, which is difficult. And they do a great job of game planning against you in their offense, but also making you change your game plan when their defense is on the field and you have to now scheme around them.
Right.
They make it difficult. So
that goes back to my Mike Tyson quote that
everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Yeah. Right. So once you get punched in the mouth, what happens? The City of Mines kept the faith. All 15,000 season tickets were sold. Which is just crazy to continue to just the journey of the book of where Mines was. But now that the season tickets sell out now easily. And locally based credit company Koface agreed to buy the naming rights to the modern first-class football stadium, cost $60 million, capacity 35,000. Man, like Wolfgang Frank is like, this is what I want it.
It's happening.
Dude, I would wonder what his he must love that happened for Mines, because I'm sure he has a good connection with them too. Like to see that the vision he had for them is happening. That the council were planning to build on Brownsfield site, a 5-minute drive outside town, not too far from Klopp's domicile in Gronsenheim. 3 of the last season's best performers, just got a car driving by. Had to open a window. It's going to be a little louder. Manuel Friedrich, Leon Andresen, Mohamed Zidane did not go down with Mainz. There was an almost entirely new midfield in Miroslav Korhan, the Slovakian international and former Wolfsburg stalwart, Tim Hoogland, Schalke, and Daniel Gonko, Energy Cottbus, and teenage center back who, by playing with the coolness of a much older head, quickly made himself indispensable, Subotic. So Klopp doing a classic revamp of the teams that have past success is something he does time and time again. And everybody's bought in. They're all in here, man. We're going to get back up, man. We're going to get back up to the top. Klopp has a very broad spectrum, he says. This is Subotic talking. He could be very harsh, I thought. He could be very harsh, I thought. Hey, this guy is screaming at me. Chill, dude. But I probably needed it then. He'd be better placed to judge that. That side of him was old school, the hard school. But there were also these moments where he came up to me and asked, "Is everything okay? If there's anything you need, let us know. We want to help. We're there for you. We want you to play well." He was like a colleague in that sense, not like a superior. I felt I could approach him. That took away a lot of my insecurities. I was a teenager on my own on a different continent, in a flat, getting paid to play football. Ridiculous, really. It was a very strange situation. The last thing you need is a coach telling you, you have to perform now, otherwise you'll be gone next year. I was given time to grow. A little redundant reading that, but not lacking the impact, because it's just proven time and time again that this is who Klopp is. This is how he coaches.
Well, he also brings in the players knowingly that those are the types of players that he can let grow.
Right.
He doesn't usually, I think, bring in players that is just like, all right, like, you know, like it just said, perform or you're out.
Mm-hmm. But we're going to continue to just get glimpses of who Klopp is, how he coaches, what kind of person he is. With Kloppo, it was all very humane, Subotic confirms. I knew these things were said for a reason, for motivation. This is when he's being a hard ass to them. As a means to an end to get to the top. Klopp had it both, the rough and the smooth. There were 2 different sides to his Mainz team, too, that year. 05 started the season well with a 4-1 win against Koblenz. 3 defeats against the league's better teams. Bogey side Gruther Fürth 3-0. Kickers Offenbach 2-0. Coached by Klopp's mentor Wolfgang Frank. And Hoffenheim 1-0. An expensive ensemble under the expert direction of Ralf Rangnick. In the following 7 matches offered a glimpse of possible shortcomings. However, they went into the winter break in second place on 31 points, a whisker ahead of Cologne. Freiburg, both on 30, fourth, 29, and 1860, 28 points.
I got the next paragraph then.
Yeah, man.
On the 9th of January 2008, Klopp's mobile phone rang. Unknown number. Heidel, sitting next to him at the winter training camp hotel in Costa Ballena, Spain, immediately knew it was important. Klopp sat up straight, nodding yes, like a good boy. Bayern's general manager, Uli Hoeneß, was on the line. The most powerful man in German football was calling Mainz 05, was calling Klopp. The record title holders were in the market for a new manager to succeed veteran Ottmar Hitzfeld for the next season. Hoeneß, we're looking at a big international option and a smaller German one. You are the German option. Can you see yourself coming here in the case we decide to go for the German option? We can talk about it, Klopp replied. I told him he had to go for it, Heidel says. I said, you're absolutely crazy if you don't do it. Their relationship was so close, he adds, that Klopp always confided in him about approaches from other clubs. Bayern's advances were hugely alluring. Klopp was aware he was only second choice for the Allianz Arena role, a backup contender if the Bavarians' complex, highly secret negotiations with the unknown international heavyweight were to fail. But that didn't do much to lessen his disappointment when Hoeneß phoned again with bad news 2 days later. We have decided to go with the other Jürgen, the Bayern patriarch declared. What other Jürgen? Klopp replied, dumbfounded for a moment. He had thought Germany's biggest club had worked on reeling in a foreign supercoach, but the big international option, it now transpired, was California-based Jürgen Klinsmann, the former German national team manager.
Boo.
Yeah, poor choice there. Heidel. Hoeneß added that the Bayern's choice was quite similar to you, Mr. Klopp. He didn't really admit it, but I could see that it was a blow for him. He was a little hurt. Mainz reporter Reinhard Rehberg later recalled Klopp taking training in a bad mood that day. But he quickly got over it, Heidel says. Klopp's very good at overcoming setbacks. As much as the Mainz coach was irked by losing out to his namesake and fellow Swabian, this was a defeat that turned into a win before too long. Hoeneß's public confirmation that Klopp, the second division coach who had presided over relegation 7 months earlier, had been a very serious alternative for the most glamorous job in German club football, amounted to his beatification, Frankfurt Rundschau wrote. He wrongly used to get reduced to being a motivational guru with talent for PR honed as a TV expert. His selection as a contender to succeed Hitzfeld by itself has directed attention towards other qualities of his. Bayern thinking about me was an honor, Klopp said. What a freaking humble thing to say, man. Just like off the shoulder, just like, yeah, it was great they were thinking about me.
And classic Klopp, he gets over it, it's back to work. We're overcoming it.
Yeah. In Heidel's view, Bayern didn't have the balls to opt for a coach without a top football background, ignoring the fact that Klopp was a much more experienced manager than Klinsmann at the time. I was talked into trying out the Klinsmann adventure, a rueful Hoeneß later admitted. We signed up the wrong Jürgen. We all know that was a big mistake. Klinsmann's reformist agenda, while convincing on paper, failed to win over the team and the club due to a severe lack of tactical detail. The former Stuttgart striker was fired 10 months into his first season, with Bayern in danger of missing out on the Champions League. And that's where I'll stop. But, like, until reading this book, dude, I did not know about that. As soon as I read that,
I didn't know it in that detail.
Wow.
I had heard that Bayern were interested in him, but I didn't know when.
Yeah.
Were they interested? Because it doesn't say anything about it when he was at Dortmund.
No.
Or maybe it does. I don't think it did, though.
No, I don't think so. I think they honestly, I think they probably tried to keep that under the rug.
Sure.
Just because of that rivalry, but I mean, just like, wow, dude, like Klopp could have fucking been at Bayern Munich.
Yep.
Think about the world if that would have happened, people. That would have been crazy. Bayern would have been... The rosters that they had in the future, man, it's just kind of nuts. But anyway.
But then Dortmund would have never happened.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, just like how the world would have been different. It's totally nuts.
Continuing on right after that in the book, but this is back into the Mainz season. In the second half of the season, Mainz results continued to be decent. Without ever building up any real momentum, Klopp's men were easily the best footballing side behind Borussia Mönchengladbach and Hoffenheim. Patient on the ball and technically much more sophisticated than the vast majority of opponents. That superiority, unfortunately, translated into a bit of complacency. Games that should have been won were drawn. Games that should have been drawn were lost. And obviously, if Bayern's after him, there's going to be more teams after this guy. So I don't, can't read everything, so I just have underlined FC Köln, and then I underlined deeply unimpressed, which is what Klopp had to think of them. Then, next team up, Hamburg SV. But there's more to say than just unimpressed because it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was funny.
Could a club of HSV's stature appoint a coach nicknamed Kloppo? The former defender wondered in Klopp's presence. You have a sporting director called Didi, don't you? The Mainz coach shot back with a smile.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of drama here, but not in the sense for no drama that really affects Klopp at all. Scouts were instructed to discreetly watch Kloppo and other candidates for the post, such as Bruno Labbadia and Dutchman Fried Rutten and Martin Jol at work. The results were collected in a dossier and presented at a board meeting. Klopp's coaching and a brand of football were much commended, but HSV spies also noted that he had been unshaven, late for training, dressed in shabby jeans, and talked rudely to the local sports reporters. A typical Hamburg story, says Heidel, shaking his head. Now, the local sports reporters thing might have been true later. Kind of near the end of Dortmund, I think it was. He was getting angry with some people in the press at some point, but not at this stage of his career.
Nah.
Shaking his head, Heidel shaking his head. Holes in his trousers, they said. This rumor that he was late for training. Jürgen Klopp was never late for training, and he even would make sure his players weren't late and would drive them there, as we read before. Not once in all those years. And they said he was brash with journalists. Yes, he was. He had known these guys for 15 years, was on the first name basis with all of them. They had already slaughtered him as a player. They were like friends. When he said to them, "You fucking lost your mind," in the press conference, with no camera running, they knew exactly how to take it. But those guys from Hamburg were like, oh my god, he can't go to Hamburg. Impossible. Going on, I called Mr. Biersdorfer and said, if you're still interested in me, I decline. Please never call me again. And that's Klopp letting him know he is uninterested in the way that they conduct things. So, he's staying with Mainz at the present time. We might not have reached the Champions League final with Klopp in charge, but I'm sure the club would have been in a better position now, a mournful Hoffman told Sport Bild in 2014. Biersdorfer, too, admitted to having a few sleepless nights over missing out on Klopp. By the time he left Dortmund in 2015, Hamburger SV had appointed 12 different coaches, including Labbadia for 2 spells, who was on that list in the dossier, traded stints in Europe for regular relegation battles, and turned into the byword for serial incompetence. They turned into Mainz. That's not in the book. That's me saying that. They turned into what Mainz used to be. Everybody thought that about Mainz. They're incompetent. They just prayed to not get relegated. But, people are worried now. There's all these people after Klopp. And who cares more about Klopp than the fans? Mainz Ultras were so worried the coach might leave that they disobeyed a preseason agreement not to call him over to their section for the customary Humba singing session after the final whistle. But Klopp, being the statesman that he may not, that's not the official term for him, but he's very relational, he said, "I understand their cause. That's why I agreed to sing with them," he said, adding that he was well aware of the strength of feeling in the stadium. A couple of days later, Klopp told reporters that he had made up his mind. He would sign a new contract with the club if they were promoted back to the Bundesliga for the next season. Some pressure to put on yourself, but it's also fair.
Yeah.
With 3 games to go, FSV were second in the table, 2 points ahead of Hoffenheim. Promotion is possible.
Yine.
But it was one of those games. 05. I'm sorry. What was this game? Klopp demanded that the crowd at the Brunswick made themselves heard in the home game against Alemannia Aachen. Is that the Aachen? No, that's a different place that I was. Mainz chief propagandist got his wish. The atmosphere was crackling under the floodlights. The stadium, louder than it had been for a long time. Reichberg and Karn wrote, but it was one of those games. 05 created plenty of opportunities and took none. And Aachen counterattack 15 minutes from time found the net. Mainz fell down to 4th spot. 3 days hence, after the injury-ravaged team had slumped to a 2-0 defeat at FC Köln, they were in the same place. There was still hope. Still a possibility. 3rd place, Hoffenheim had to lose or draw against Greuther Fürth. Mainz had to beat St. Pauli. Klopp's last game as FSV coach finished with a 5-1 win over the self-styled punk football club from Hamburg. But Hoffenheim had beaten Fürth 5-0. They went up to the Bundesliga, and Mainz stayed down. 18 years of Jürgen Klopp at the Brunswick. Just under 11 as a player, just over 7 as a manager. Ended in silent desperation, football's worst feeling. Total powerlessness. And that's all the time. No. Just like, no, we'll keep going. 20,000 fans in the stadium stood up to serenade the sobbing manager with, "You'll never walk alone."
Yeah. I can't believe Mainz, the first club he was managing, sang that song. It almost seems like destiny. He went to fucking Dortmund and then Liverpool. It's like he followed the song.
It was all destiny. Klopp only managed 2/3 of the lap of honor before breaking down in tears. Mainz, it's the beginning of a new world that we never wished for, Heidel said. If it was up to me, we could have continued working together for another 10 years. 30,000 people turned up. Remember, it went from 300 to like 8,000 to now it's everybody. 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Turned up at the Gutenbergsplatz. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Wow, I'm getting better. The following Friday evening to give Klopp a second, happier send-off. Earlier that day, he had been unveiled as the new Dortmund coach. Back in his football hometown, Klopp's voice crumbled under the weight of tears. Everything I am, everything I can do, you have made possible for me. Everything. He stuttered on stage. Everybody was crying.
Yep.
The grown-ups were crying.
The toddlers.
It reminds me of the Man City thing that I watched on YouTube when they won the title with the Aguero.
Yeah.
And the guys are just like, I've never seen so many grown men crying.
Well, he hasn't seen Mainz when Klopp was leaving.
The farewell showed once more how many emotions he stirred up, how he brought people together. I had seen him celebrating. I had seen him lost in thought before, but this was a different side to him. It wasn't sorrow, it was affirmative. His life work was being recognized. He was the star of the team, the main protagonist of an extraordinary story. That night, you could see how much he meant to the whole city. It was very touching, unforgettable. And I have one more underlined thing, and then if you have anything, you can go.
I don't.
Towards the bottom into the final page. If everybody is pushing, this is Klopp addressing people. If everybody is pushing in the same direction, if everybody takes the giant heart of the city into their own hands when going into the stadium or watching Minds at home to really cheer us on, to step on the gas and to support us with all their might, if we haven't learned that lesson after these 18 years here, I don't know anymore. I think we did learn that lesson. I may have not learned it when you were at Mainz, but I learned it when you were at Liverpool. And I have learned it even more so reading this story. And as sad as that is, I have to do it again. That ends chapter 14 of 60,000 Tears. Into chapter 15, In Times of Fading Light. The titles do not get more happy.
No, and this is at Dortmund 2013 to 15.
So now we're done with the club that we both just kind of learn about. And now we're back to a club that means something to you. I do open up with this opening paragraph for chapter 15.
Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Borussia Dortmund had pushed the best team in Europe extremely close in the 2013 Champions League final at Wembley, and yet the 25-point gap behind Bayern Munich at the end of the Bundesliga campaign posed an uncomfortable question. Why had Dortmund lost so much ground domestically? 2 1-1 draws in the league games against the treble winners suggested an inability to beat the lesser lights had been the main issue. Klopp and his coaching staff believed the answer was not change, but more of the same, better and faster. We want to build a new pressing machine, he announced before heading into the summer holidays. So they're sticking true to their guns. We just got to do it better. We got to do it bigger. We got to do it faster. But there's still drama happening because the unresolved Lewandowski situation did zap some of our energy that year, Watts confesses. However, even if the player himself was scarcely affected by the undefined tug-of-war, he would notch up 20 goals in the season, winning the first Torjägerkanone.
Torjägerkanone.
Torjägerkanone. The trophy for the leading goal scorer.
Which directly translates to goal hunting cannon.
That's amazing. Gotta love Germans. An emphatic, brilliant, engineered counterattack victory 4-2 over newly arrived Bayern Munich coach Pep Guardiola in the German Super Cup held out hope for another exciting season. And Klopp's pressing machine 2.0 with shiny add-ons Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Heinrich Mkhitaryan was soon pumping out wins in the Bundesliga. Dortmund were only 1 point off the Bavarians at the top of the table 11 games in, so this season looks good. Then the mood darkened. A loss to Wolfsburg brought attention to a lengthy injury list. Was the Klopp's team high press intensity, super athletic playing style to blame? One journalist inquired in the pre-match press conference for Bayern's visit to Westphalia. A wretched question, the coach sneered on the podium. With barely controlled rage, we are a team that gives everything. You've all praised us for that countless times. Klopp's pointed to more convoluted fixtures list. Half a dozen of his players had become German internationals, so that causes some issues too. And the tough times were coming. Bayern's 3-0 win at the Signal Iduna Park, a game that swung on the opener by substitute Mario Götze. Of all people. ushered in a spell of poor results. Dortmund finished a shit final third of the year in a disappointing fourth spot, 12 points behind leaders Bayern, who had a game in hand. So, the pressing 2.0 machine is not working. So what's wrong? Dortmund missed too many chances and had problems creating openings against teams who were happy to sit deep. The same problem happened when he was at Liverpool for a while. It became clearer than ever before that the tactical trailblazers, they had made a rod for their own back. Even newly promoted teams who were individually not on the same page had learned to adopt smart countermeasures. You play the same ball you've played the year before, and the opponents are there. You play the ball again, and they're there again, Subotic recounts. It's always harder if you're forced to play through opponents rather than to concentrate on the transition, says Hummels. We found it a tough going. And increasingly, Kurt and irritated Klopp refused to believe that the problem was a lack of a plan B. He had to go through the same criticism at Liverpool.
Yeah.
As countless media observers claimed, the issue, he insisted, lay with application, not strategy. And the inquiries simply bad luck, or maybe not. Some wondered whether the rot had set in due to the departure of the athletics coach Oliver Bartlett in 2012. But that explanation is not corroborated by any of the players or BVB officials who contributed to this book.
Yeah, the next few paragraphs are good.
Go for it.
Unsurprisingly, things got a little disquiet in training, says Hermann Hummels. It wasn't always nice, but it's normal. Being with a coach for such a long time is like being in a relationship. There is tension. It's unavoidable. There were arguments about tactics too. Some of the more experienced players were possibly a little less receptive to the run mantra than they had been before. Subotic. When you get the feeling as a player that you've already achieved something, that you have a bit of experience, you suddenly don't want to say yes to everything anymore. I guess that's human nature. If it was necessary, Klopp upped the volume. He shook us up a bit to wake us up, not by saying, you have to play something different, boys. It'll be tough. No, he went up to a player and slapped him across the face. You think, oh, he might slap him back. That was a rougher move, but you knew he didn't do it to let off steam, but to up the intensity. We understood, and the aggression was always contained, never uncontained.
That just makes me think of Kyle.
That wouldn't have worked, yeah.
It stops now into one of our kids' faces.
Yeah, but a slap across the face would just... That would
can't
be
slap kids.
No, you can't. I mean, I can't even think about slapping a grown person just for like trying to up the intensity for something.
Is there anything culturally German about that isn't as offensive, or is that just an understanding amongst peers that you have to just know the guy? You think?
I honestly was trying to think. Like when I read that last night when I was reading it, I'm just like, like maybe that's just, maybe culturally you can get away with just like, not get away, but like,
because that's just brushed over. It's just mentioned and moved on. And yeah, it's just kind of Klopp, it's.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm not really. Slapped it across the face.
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly not really sure. I did get slapped when I was over there, but it was just like, I think. I don't know. I can't really say honestly, but I feel like because it was so, the way Raphael describes it, I feel like it has to do with how the team culture is for
right.
Like the players understand that Klopp did that because he's trying to get them to wake up. I feel like that's the only thing that makes sense, honestly, to me as the reader.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe some of you guys listening to this, reading the book, might feel differently. It's just I felt like that's the only way to really explain that.
Okay, cool.
Gonna skip ahead a little bit here.
Sure.
Dortmund, like all the best families, kept their squabbles in-house. Disagreements never got beyond the changing room. There was no falling out. The giddy teenage love affair between Klopp and his players of the previous years had evolved into a more regular relationship with customary ups and downs, but the mutual adoration itself was still very much there. Klopp treated his men like a strict father would, making life uncomfortable to bring out their best, not to shift blame onto them or vent his frustrations. He never briefed against his players to the media, never played games. It was always about football, and everyone knew exactly where they stood with him, says Subotic. The coach's deep personal connection with the supporters remains strong too. When BVB Ultra Jan-Henrik Gruszecki approached Klopp with a plea to auction off one of his baseball caps in support of a crowd-funded film about Borussia's founding father, Franz Jokobi, he refused flat out. But then he immediately said, "We can do much better than that. I'll give you a whole day," Gruszecki says. We sold him to Dortmund's biggest employers for a signing session and made 20,000 euros, which covered a tenth of the budget, which is fucking nuts.
I had that underlined. Just even at the end, things aren't going well.
But there's so many bright moments like that, though.
And it's still just about more than the football.
Yeah.
It's about the connections with the people.
I didn't really have much else underlined.
Because if he was somebody, like, that doesn't mean it's not that he's perfect, but that's just what makes him different. And I'm sure there's other people that can stand tall to who they are in the face of adversity when the ship seems to be sinking, but that just speaks to his character, that even when it's going bad and the questions are being asked for you, he's behind the scenes. Like, I'm sure maybe this was talked about a little bit. I don't know how the media covered it in Dortmund itself, but I didn't know about this till now. I'm sure other people that read the book didn't know about it till now, that was something that he did during that season. So he's still continuing to be who he is, doing things that matter.
Right, yeah. He's absolutely caring and much like it said, like a very big like father figure to his players and, you know, to the club at some points.
So I just have next underlined just Klopp being the Klopp that we all know, and the reason that Mr. Buvak is coaching a couple games without Klopp.
Oh, yeah.
Because
it's a good moment, yeah.
He screamed at the fourth official, "How many more mistakes do you want to make? One more and it's 15 today." Right into the face of the fourth official, almost dislocating his jaw in anger.
That moment is replayed a lot when he's talked about it on like videos and stuff, and I never really knew what was happening with his jaw in the video, but you can see it just like almost like displacing, and it's kind of crazy.
"My face would have warranted a 5-game ban," he ruefully admitted later. "I don't recognize myself sometimes on the touchline." So I can agree with that. I mean, I know somebody like that. I mean, Angela's brother is like that. But
who?
Gino.
Oh, really?
Maybe not as bad, but like you hear him on the touchline, man, and the ref will hear him.
Right.
For sure. He's not afraid to get sent off. Not saying he does it all the time. But I'll tell you, though, probably watching it as a neutral or on the opposing side, like you go like, you don't want that.
No.
But when I was on the JV, I was the assistant JV coach, and we obviously were there for the varsity games after our game. Dude, you kind of like that that's the leader of the team.
Well, yeah, you want somebody that's going to protect your players.
Right.
Yeah.
I just, even though I was on the coaching staff, like, I liked that he stood up and fought for everything. It's all he could do as a coach, but unafraid and willing to go what needs to be said and feeling the passion behind it. It's not just that he wants to win the game, but there's a little bit of that, but there's a passion, obviously, protecting the players, but also just there was a confidence to it in the way that he went about it. It wasn't just in a whiny way. I don't know how to fully articulate it, but you knew he was the leader of this team. Maybe not on the field, but he was the genuine leader who cared the most. At least that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
Back to actual playing, Dortmund qualified in the top spot from another tough Champions League group. Arsenal, Napoli, Marseille. That is a tough group. During the winter break, they nearly pulled off an even more stunning victory. Making good use of his friendship with Real Madrid president Florentino Perez, Watzke almost thwarted Lewandowski's Bayern move, encouraging Los Merengues to sign him up instead. Dude, him and Ronaldo would have been something. Lewandowski wavered, but in the end decided to honor his pre-contract agreement with Bayern. His move to the Allianz Arena for the beginning of the 14-15 season was confirmed on the 4th of January, 2014. I didn't know that happened, so I just thought it was cool to point out that even behind the scenes, you're just, all right, you're leaving, but that's not to Bayern.
I've watched a few clips of
some 5D chess.
The Dortmund CEO just like explaining that whole situation a little bit more, and just how you can tell that, of course they don't want their players to go to Bayern. Just like, if they can go somewhere else, like not somebody that they're going to play against.
Sure, that's definitely more common now. Nobody wants to sell to local rivals.
Yeah.
Hummels returns from injury. For the second half of the season, the defender had hurt his knee at the World Cup, so the back line is getting a little bit more stable. There's a steady improvement in domestic results, and progress to the Champions League quarterfinals vindicated Klopp's conviction that only details had been missing before Christmas. The team had enough individual and collective quality to finish second behind Bayern, make it to the DFB Pokal final, and push Real Madrid very hard in the Champions League. The Spaniards just edged the tie 3-2 on aggregate, having won the first leg in Madrid 3-0. You're out, aren't you? Presenter Jürgen Breyer had asked Klopp after the final whistle at the Bernabeu. How could anyone pay me for doing my job if I stood there? Saying that we're out already, Klopp replied, shaking his head in disbelief. My friend Florentino Perez still gets sweaty palms thinking about the first half in Dortmund. In the second leg, Watzke smiles. So they go out, but they go out in Jürgen Klopp fashion. They fight to the end. They make it close. They do everything they can, but they are out. Champions League is done.
Yeah.
A depleted Bayern had lined up with 5 at the back in Berlin to frustrate Dortmund. Klopp's men had destroyed Guardiola's men 3-0 at the Allianz Arena a month earlier. They were the informed team. They had the momentum. An attritional game was heading for stalemate when on 65 minutes, Mats Hummels saw his header cleared from well behind the line by Dante. The referee waved play on, and Bayern scored 2 goals in extra time to escape with a trophy in tow.
Yeah.
I did not know that happened.
Yeah,
that's classic 2010 World Cup problems. Frank Lampard off the bar behind Manuel Neuer by 2 clear yards.
Yep.
And the ref goes, no.
Yeah.
And then Germany win. Maybe that goal changes things, maybe it doesn't, but goals are sure momentum shifters, so it is a tough blow.
Yeah.
When that's disallowed.
Yeah, I sort of remember that that happening when Dante was trying to clear it from within the goal already, just heading it out, and just how it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's just inconceivable how it's just not called back, and it's just like even with some
I like
evidence,
goal line technology.
right? It's just like obviously that's in, and then it can be counted, and the right decision can be made with the goal. But yeah, so after that, Dortmund kind of have like a little bit of a recession, and especially in 2014-15 season.
Well, I'm going to read the little thing at the bottom just to
to
clear that it's still a Klopp team. They do all the same things we read about Liverpool if they're losing a bad game or cup final losses. Borussia must be different. If anybody tells me what a shame tonight, I'll punch the glass out of their hands without so much as a word. Please enjoy the evening, and don't worry, we will definitely be back. This is a team with a strong backbone. It doesn't matter who they take from us. We'll bring in new guys, and everything will all be fine. Were you going to start at that next paragraph?
I was actually going to just say that even though he did say that everything wasn't all right, and just that whole season was kind of like it says, it's a brutal, shitty situation, crazy, just kind of how like Klopp says about the 2-1 defeat in Munich in that season of 2014-15, just like how much they are struggling.
Yeah.
But then I wanted to go on into the next paragraph. As a fresh-faced, occasionally clean-shaven Mainz coach in the second division, Klopp had told his players and the German public that success on the pitch had to be explainable. In other words, the result of objectively beneficial, repeatable endeavor. The reasons for the disastrous lack of success in his 7th year at BVB proved much harder to ascertain. Because football is a low-scoring game, the distinction between symptoms and ills, between mere bad luck and underlying deficits, often isn't an easy one to make. Did they miss so many chances due to a strength-sapping playing style that seems stuck in eternal adolescence? The contrast with Guardiola's Bayern, who had perfected their own version of pressing to the point that they ran less than anybody else in Germany, was especially painful. Even Watzke, the CEO of Dortmund, noted Dortmund's less economic, more laborious way of playing. And that was kind of like a contrast you kind of got used to watching throughout that season. You kind of noticed that Bayern had their style, and was less like they had to work less. They made the ball do more of the work essentially, while Dortmund were still kind of very much like all in, like run mantra, even still.
Well, I just want to paint it was more than just shit. At the halfway mark, Dortmund had 15 points in 17th in the drop zone. Bayern Munich on 45. There were only a goal difference separated them from the worst team in the league. We're left looking like complete morons here, and we deserve it. So I just wanted to paint the picture a bit more of how crap of a season it was.
Really bad.
Yeah. From 2 Bundesliga titles to in the drop zone at halfway through the season is crazy. Especially like the signings that they said they got, Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang, like the players aren't scrubs that they had.
Right. And changing them around a little bit did help as the chapter goes on, with Aubameyang playing more of a striker role.
That's where I pick up in 276.
Yeah, you can go ahead then, because I do not have much.
It just goes just highlighting mistakes. It was our grave misjudgment, Walk says. The summer of 2014, all of us, especially Jürgen, who was in charge of the lineup, was convinced that Aubameyang was not a number 9. Otherwise, we wouldn't have needed to bother with Ciro Immobile, who did not have a good Dortmund career. But Obviously, he was another guy who was just a mismatch for Klopp because he had an incredible career with Lazio when he found where he was going to find success. So things would have worked out differently, would have been easier and so on and so forth. But, you know, as it was, the season was just shit season. And obviously we have the hindsight of Aubameyang going through the middle with Thomas Tuchel and having great success, great goal tally. Aubameyang was very sought after at the time, and why he moved on to Arsenal and had a decent time there, not as successful as Arsenal, but there's a reason that he was sought after. It was very he was deadly, man. It was fun to watch them play. And that's when we read the Europa League tie against Liverpool when Klopp coached against his players that he brought in, Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang playing through the middle. Mm-hmm. And they carved up Liverpool, but Liverpool fought back against a team probably more talented.
Right, which was why it was one of the biggest games of that time.
Yeah, Mkhitaryan was carving us up, and Aubameyang was carving us up too. We had young players and players that were bought for little money who performed so well at home and in Europe that they were all of a sudden in a completely different league in terms of their value. The club couldn't keep them, they had to sell them. But at the same time, it was obvious that replacements of equal quality were not available due to the finances. That led to a situation where we could only ever aim to keep our level. We couldn't actually improve. Bayern, meanwhile, were investing smartly and kept developing. Expectations at Dortmund had grown so much that we were unable to live up to it anymore.
Yeah.
I thought that really summed up the Dortmund situation as a whole, and a little bit so more that they haven't had a season like that, but like the struggle to hold on to the players like Bayern do has continued to plague Dortmund, but they seem to have it. They seem to at least keep them coming in. They keep developing.
Yeah,
they're keeping competitive.
It's still a struggle. Like,
should have had a league title.
Yeah. Maybe.
Hey. I know what it's like to fall short of a point in the Premier League,
right,
and in the Champions League back to back.
Which is
Klopp did it with Liverpool,
which is incredible. I would jump to 279 if you don't have anything else.
Okay, I got some 278 real quick and then I'll let you go. Hummel's plight was more mundane, he said. I came back injured and never really recovered my form that season. As captain, my job was to lead by example, but I was too busy trying to get to grips with my own problems. I couldn't be a leader and talk to others from a position of strength because I was playing crap football. Dortmund's problems didn't add up. They multiplied.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I had for that. It's just not good. Nothing's good. The captain sucks. He's hurt. He's admitting it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of that's a very humble moment or vulnerable moment for Hummel.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That stuff, man.
Absolutely.
Like, that is just
absolutely.
I don't know. Even as a coach, like, you kind of can't help but feel like you've had maybe some situations like that where you want to lead, but like, even if you're well, as a captain, like, if you're not playing well, you can't lead from a position of strength, like he said, and that's
for sure.
For whatever reason, I don't know. I was never a captain, but I resonate with just like being. Maybe it's like an older brother thing. Maybe, I don't know. Like, if I can't lead by example, like, I feel like I'm not doing quite well.
Right. So you're trying to just fix yourself, but like, you're supposed to be leading at the same time.
Right. Yeah. On 279, just to put Klopp back in the spotlight, Klopp was visibly affected by the disastrous run. His job was not in danger. Vodka had given him a cast iron guarantee, but he felt personally.
Second time he's gotten that. No matter the Mainz result,
right?
You're not being fired.
Right. This club. Yeah.
You don't fire Klopp. It's never happened. No club has been like, firing is an option. He's left every time.
Right. Which is a feat in its own.
Yeah.
But he felt personally responsible. The whole thing drained him. He was in the driving seat. He took it to heart that we were not going in the right direction for some strange reason. I remember looking at him thinking, oh, he looks really tired and stressed. So Tish recalls. As a guy who's so emotionally involved, you knew it was hitting him very hard, says Hummels. A coach, like any other leading figure, must project self-confidence in order to instill confidence in others. But how can you keep faith with your ideas if results continue to go the wrong way? Your head is full of questions, says Kravitz. Is it your fault? Is it the team's? What shall we do? It was an extremely shitty situation. More than anyone could really bear. You don't wish that kind of spell on your worst enemy. It was unbelievably exhausting, unbelievably depressing. And at the same time, you're really not allowed to show your emotions. The coaching staff have to be the first ones out there the next morning saying, come on, guys, we go again. Here's what you've done wrong. 2, 3 details, and we're back on track.
That's why, like, if you are a coach and lose the dressing room is why it all falls apart. Because you're the guy after the loss going, come on, guys, we got to go. And everybody's like,
we just did that.
Up yours, dude. Like, what? No.
Yeah.
But he hasn't lost the locker room. The respect is still there. But the games that they were having were 74% possession, 15 shots on goal.
They're doing everything.
Yeah, and the opponents have 2 shots on goal and they lose 1-0. So like, dude, it's rough.
That is, man. Even when you're trying so hard.
That was that season. Outdoor LCPC.
My God.
Dominant possession, all the chances. They just counter over and over again. But, you know, they score a couple, and I'm like, we should have had 8. We lost 3-2 or whatever. What's happening every game? And it was in the atmosphere. I felt it. But we still played well. It was crazy. Down at the bottom of 280, I got the residual bond and trust between Klopp and his players was strong enough to keep things from breaking completely apart. I did even try to just read something that I just said out loud, but like that's why it stayed together, because Klopp didn't ever lose the dressing room, no matter how bad it got. I mean, if you look back through the story, like it always gets bad in the locker room. There's always problems. There's always a wall in front of him that he has to overcome. And even though maybe they don't win, I mean, they're at the bottom, like they're talking about relegation. So that's a problem that he does fix. But obviously he doesn't mend it to the fact that now I'm going to continue to be the coach or whatever. But it doesn't, he still overcomes it. Which seems
like a mountain to climb, just with how things are going.
And here's when I was saying this is the time where he gets a little bit, he's getting in it with journalists and stuff.
Yeah.
Jürgen felt he was getting the raw deal from the media. That was his problem, said Schneck. He felt they didn't treat him right, so he made up his mind. They have no idea. They need to fill their papers somehow. I remember a game we lost, I think away to Wolfsburg. He went hell for leather in the press conference. I said to him, mate, that was really shitty. That kind of tone was inappropriate. He goes, leave it out. You were one of those shit journos too. He was irresistible, not diplomatic at all. Of course, he later said, sorry, I didn't mean it that way, and I knew him too well to be offended, but his relationship with the media got more and more fractured. So it does kind of go into it, and I probably have it underlined that it is a little bit of a different Klopp. It's not everything's hunky-dory and there's a joke to be said. Like, he cares a lot, so it's hard for him to be in a good mood, but he also knows he has to keep working, so when people are constantly questioning him, he's like, it goes to like when the fans would question him, he would go over and calmly talk to them because they're very integral to the whole operation, but not as much in his eyes the media just trying to pester him. They're not asking him the way that the ultras are asking what's going on, out of like, we actually want to know like what's up with the team.
Yeah.
It's
that
coming,
would be a
it's
response
not coming
I would
from
want to give too.
It's not coming from an authentic source, and the man broke. And so it's like, you are not with me. You have no part in our, if we turn it around or not. You are not involved in it. If not, you're the enemy trying to make us not come back.
So can we take a pause real quick?
Yeah, man.
My bladder says I have to take a pause.
Okay, we are back. Had a little pee break. So that's what the cut in the audio is. So Klopp's kind of losing it with the media. That's a little bit of a different thing, a new development. But back to playing. Looking back, Dortmund were saved by the bell, or bells, of Christmas, ringing in a 6-week respite. I don't think we ever thought this is the end of us. But it was so good to get on to the winter break, Subotic says. Klopp insisted that the Christmas party should go ahead as planned, even though things were bad. So they get a break. They still make sure they enjoy themselves, party together. Dortmund, so they're back to playing, thinking that the break is going to heal them. It kind of does, but not right away. Dortmund drew 0-0 at Leverkusen in the first game in January, but then lost 1-0 at home to a 10-man Augsburg. Borussia were so bad in their 11th defeat of the season that the most loyal of supporters, those on the yellow wall, shouted at the players in disgust. They were in 18th place now. Hummels and Weidenfeller tried their best to placate the angry fans, talking with them for a good few minutes through the fence. That hit me just in the sense that these are Klopp acolytes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to go talk to these ultras, tell them what's going on. Yes, it sucks. We're playing like crap, but we have not stopped working. We haven't given up. The famous BVB togetherness was beginning to crack under the pressure of the relegation angst. It bends, but it doesn't break. As Krawitz had thought, the team bounced back. Hold on, I think I want to read it before that. But they were our most difficult moment. That was our most difficult moment. The first time I really started fearing the worst. We felt as if we were in a horror movie. There were rumors that Ottmar Hitzfeld and Lucien Favre had been sounded out to come in as firefighters, but the Dortmund CEO says it was never an option to part ways with Jürgen. Even then, nobody thought about that for a second. And as Krawitz thought, the team bounced back. The next 5 games were won. They shot up the table like a belated New Year rocket. Play, fun, thrill, that's Borussia Dortmund, Klopp said after a 3-0 win in the Ruhr Derby. The slogan was borrowed from a Kinder Surprise ad and referenced Aubameyang and Ruiz's surprise goal celebration. The Black and Yellow's dynamic duo had dressed up as Batman and Robin on the pitch. Suddenly, qualification for the Champions League looked feasible once more. Now, I don't remember how I ever saw that. Maybe watching ESPN FC or something of the like. But I had no idea what was going on in Dortmund. But I remember seeing Batman and Robin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I saw it. But
it's a very iconic picture, not even now.
But yeah, I didn't know that this was
but knowing
Dortmund
happened,
facing the drop. I didn't know Jürgen Klopp. I didn't know the history of any of this. I didn't know this was them on their way bouncing back. So I was like, wait, what? That's when this happened? I knew that happened, but I didn't know when.
Yeah, it wasn't like in a happy time.
Right.
But like it's probably something that they needed.
Right.
Just
but
like
that's
a little.
That team togetherness is still there.
Even in
without it, dude, this team is gone. It's destroyed. It's they have such a solid foundation to weather these storms.
that
other teams do not have.
It's lovely, man. Just learning about it through the book. It's just like it's great.
Longshaman, who had listened to hundreds of Klopp's team talks by then, maintains that the coach continued to find words that got under the players' skin. He was able to bring them into line, mesmerizing them. After 7 years, he hadn't lost his ability to squeeze out the best of people. So now it is turning around a bit here. To pick yourself up and come back so strongly is not normal, says Sven Bender. It was only possible because we all pulled together. The coach had to walk through that valley of shadow, and the team had to. The club had made a noble decision and kept faith with the coach. And it's not a given today. The club made a noble decision and kept faith with the coach. That's not a given in today's football business. Usually the coach gets axed by this point. And I'm going to go back to the end of the Minds chapter just once here. If everybody is pushing in the same direction, if everybody takes the giant heart of the city into their own hands when going into the stadium or watching Minds at home to really cheer us on, to step on the gas, and to support us with all their might, if we haven't learned that lesson after these 18 years, I don't know anymore. Klopp knows that lesson, and he didn't stop, and these players learned that lesson, and they kept going. So that's just, like I said, it's a solid foundation. It's not built on a lie. The lowest low blow was yet to come. Dortmund had come away with a 2-1 defeat from the first leg against Juventus in Italy in the Champions League. An almost perfect result, which kind of is back then with the away goal. A huge fan of choreography before kickoff in the Signal Iduna Park summoned the spirit of the past Dortmund that had won the European Cup against the Old Lady in 1997 and togetherness. But when Carlos Tevez, man, what a striker he was, scored after 3 minutes for the visitors, Dortmund were rendered completely helpless, dying a slow 87-minute-long death on the pitch. That's brutal. But you won Champions League glory, but if you're worried about relegation, it isn't the end-all be-all of that season.
Yeah.
Watzke, Zorc, and Klopp met in Wattske's office not long after Easter. We all had this feeling of trepidation, Watzke says. In principle, we all knew that it would be better if we finished it. But Michael and me couldn't say it. Eventually, Jürgen said, listen, we're all thinking the same thing here, aren't we? I'll tell you now. I'll go. We had agreed that things had run their course. It wasn't a case of his effect on the team having worn off or anything like that. But 7 years was a very long time. We had felt it for a while. No one had dared to admit it. And it still felt really shit to make the decision to part ways.
Seven years is a long time. It's crazy to think how long he's just been at each of those clubs too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the amount of time he needs to do what he does.
Feel free to interrupt me at any time. On the next page here, just to summarize what I just said. To think that he was to go at the end of the season. Nuts. All of Dortmund was in shock. Even people who didn't support the team.
Yeah.
Klopp explained that he was no longer certain that he was the right coach for such an extraordinary club, and it had been his duty to communicate those doubts to his superiors. One big head needed to roll. My one. He quipped. One last quip for the media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to just kind of summarize a little bit here, just how like him leaving was a big surprise, as it said. And even like the employers and the owners of the club, just, you know, they were comparing like his send-off from Dortmund's to Mainz's, and how he definitely deserved a better send-off than to get some flowers in front of the yellow wall, and how Mainz's was a bit more spectacular with like the whole city showing up, and just kind of crying together. And maybe it was because of how like the news was broken or to everybody or whatever, but maybe it was just so much of a surprise that they just couldn't find the right way to say goodbye to him, which I kind of thought about after finishing that chapter. It's just like, man, like, yeah, but you also have all those memories to hang on to as well. So it's like not even, I don't know. But the chapter keeps reminding us, the audience, that, you know, if like their bond with this coach Klopp like is just so strong, like they would take him back in a heartbeat no matter what it was, and just how much like this dude means to this club, like how like what he did for them, and just like they are forever indebted to this man. And that is just like that has like a lot of weight. Like an entire organization just owes it to this guy for 7 years of just coaching their team. And
for sure,
it is very heavy.
So there's a little bit more of the season yet to play here, and the players want to come together, and not just, you know, they've been trying to stick together and not get relegated, but they're like, it's more than that now, because they're kind of, relegation isn't really a thing anymore, but man, let's kill it to finish this out.
Yeah.
So Dortmund collected 13 points from the last 6 league games to squeeze into the Europa League place, 7th spot in the table. Somewhere between disappointment and just about respectable, but not the disaster it had threatened to be. So they do well in that regard. The Yellow Wall's moving tribute game gave voice to the sense of indebtedness that the supporters felt toward their departing tracksuit hero. "Thank you, Jürgen," the big banner said. "It takes years to understand how valuable single moments can be." A smaller one underneath read, "I think Jürgen was afraid of the last moment, as the fans were." 75,000 people in the stadium were crying, united in mourning, and in denial as well. Jürgen Klopp was leaving the club. People didn't want to say it because saying it made it true. A deep run in the Pokal offered one last chance of a fairy tale ending. Borussia managed to inflict the one defeat on Pep Guardiola's Bayern, as they suffered that. It's their only defeat they suffered in the 3 years in the Cup, forcing their way into the final in Berlin on penalties. "That game in Munich did him a world of good," says Gundogan. And he picks up his phone. On a shaky dressing room video, Klopp is grinding his hips to a rap song, beer bottle in hand. One super cool game would follow, he promised. Now, it doesn't end as happy, but man, keeping Bayern away from silverware is a win in my book, because that's how I feel now towards, if City doesn't win, if they get one less trophy that year, and it just happens to be Pep Guardiola's team now, I feel better.
Yeah.
Dortmund failed to capitalize on an early 1-0 lead against Wolfsburg and left the pitch beaten 3-1, looking like a shadow of their former percussively powerful selves, losing against Wolfsburg. Gundogan shakes his head in the mild disgust. Really an embarrassment. He deserved better. It just wasn't to be. Could you, in the meantime, Google that cup final? If you could find the players that were on Wolfsburg. I'm going to keep reading. So, the games are over. He went to Dortmund and made them champions. Twice. Cup winners. He got them to the Champions League final. And for all of that, they hand him a bunch of flowers in front of the South Stand. I'm sure he thought of the way mine said goodbye to him in that moment. And my guess is that he was disappointed that Dortmund didn't really make him feel that it was him who had saved the club. Him who took it from near bankruptcy to a rich club with his ideas and his personality. They couldn't have done it without him. Not even close. He turned the whole club upside down. All of that seemed a little forgotten at the end. I'm not sure he's still emotionally very connected to Borussia Dortmund. Well, that's not as true. 18 months after Klopp left the Black and Yellows, however, it's obvious that they do miss and fully appreciate him. He was more than a coach. He was a coach for the whole club. A little wistfully, Jürgen was the most resplendent ambassador any club could wish for. And for me, that concludes chapter 15. And we just have chapter 16 of LFC and beyond, which is only a few pages. Any luck with looking up that roster? If not, we can move on. It is not important. All I'm curious about is if that was a Bast Dost and Kevin De Bruyne Wolfsburg. Because I know
it was.
Was that who beat them?
Luis Gustavo scored 22nd minute. De Bruyne 33rd. Bast Dost scored in the 38th. So all those goals happened in 16 minutes.
They were sad it was Wolfsburg. That was a great Wolfsburg team. I was wondering how Wolfsburg made it to a final.
Yeah. It was a good team. It was a good team. But
dude, Kevin De Bruyne had like 20 goals and 20 assists that year.
But I think
lobbing balls to Basto's head because the guy's like 6'5". But that lanky guy was just scoring goals for fun that year. It was a fun team to see because it was just like an out of nowhere, like kind of a bunch of guys just hitting their stride together, and that's what got Kevin De Bruyne to Man City was that season.
I believe that 100%. I was reading a different article on that game, and De Bruyne's name came up, and I'm just like,
Yeah, it wasn't just some lowly Wolfsburg Cinderella story. There was some real quality there.
Yeah, I remember that team being. Yeah,
I think they got into the Champions League that year. I'm pretty sure they finished top 4.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah. Wow, chapter 16, LFC and beyond.
This is it, guys. This is the last chapter, and it's not long, so let's just power through this here. Thanks to their late flourish in May of 2017, Liverpool are once again playing in the Champions League in 2017-18 for only the second time since 2010.
Jeez.
It's not as pivotal in terms of money because of a Premier League TV deal that poured in almost $3 billion per season. But players still want to play Champions League.
Mm-hmm.
And getting into the Champions League was pivotal in my opinion. Before Jürgen's arrival, there had been questions whether the club had lost some of its luster. Our return puts that to rest. We have a manager now who's the best in the world in my mind, and we have a squad of world-class players. Naturally, they want to play in the Champions League. It's a signal to the world that we're back. It helps us entice the best people. If it was possible, a lot of the supporters would have his name on the back of the shirt, says Jamie Carragher. He's already been described as like the protagonist of teams at Mainz and Dortmund's who you think of, and Carragher agrees. One of them was after they had lost to Crystal Palace. I'm sorry. This is Carragher he's talking about a couple of the parties that he's been at for Liverpool, some of the team parties. And one of them was after they had lost to Crystal Palace at the end of the season, when it looked bad for fourth place. But when he was high-fiving all the players and they were all hugging each other, that relationship he has with his players is a major part of his success as a football manager. I never had a relationship like that with any of my managers. He's just a big, energetic man, and you want to play for him. And he was able to do that in a Legends game. But and that just goes back to something back when he was in the Dortmund chapter there, of just saying, like, it's a misrepresentation that he's just best pals with all of the team. Like, he commands a lot of respect and commands a lot of power and authority. The buddy comes as a fruit of the labor. It's not that he just approaches them and is all willy-nilly and we don't care. It is intensity, and that relationship is grinded through suffering and pain, but also a togetherness that's built in the struggle. So I just wanted to... I know he did that for Liverpool too, so it's that work he puts in that creates the bond and all the different things that he does to create the relationships. It's not just that he was nice and their friend and now they hug. The hugs have a lot of meaning behind them. There's a lot of work, blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm sure arguments that are behind the hugs. And apparently Liverpool were hit with a link to being bought out by China, which I slightly remember. But when the link with China hit the headlines, Klopp told the Americans explicitly that it was they who he had put his trust in. We chose Jürgen as manager, but we're very conscious of the fact that this was a mutual decision, that he chose us. Likewise, Gordon says, I don't want to use the word legitimacy, but his decision was valid, that has validated everything that those of us that had been working on the football side of the club have been seeking to achieve. He has changed the atmosphere around the club, the environment, the ethos for the place, and the project is in a far more positive place. So, man, not even China can buy you if Jürgen Klopp is the coach.
Well, like, what was his, like, logic behind choosing Fenway over the Chinese company? Did he just...
No, that was like, there was links that Fenway was going to sell. Like, they had already hired him and stuff, and, like, China was interested in buying out the club.
Ah, okay. I gotcha.
It would have been a change of ownership, but that was, like, Klopp saying, like, when I came here, I chose you guys.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
and then the ownership going in, that's why we brought you here.
Happening, yeah.
We are here with you, kind of thing. I don't know how far that ever got, but it was in the zeitgeist and in the media that they were interested in buying out the club and all that. I'm sure there would have been a fan riot if they got anywhere near close. Jürgen will take them back to the top, I'm sure. They're as crazy about football there as we are. He will awaken their passion. Ansgar Brinkman, too, predicts rising temperatures on Merseyside. Jürgen is capable of setting fire to a city. This was comparing Dortmund, who's also a blue-collar club, and now Liverpool is just a perfect fit for him. And people are predicting some success. I just have this underlined. You know, you people might feel differently about hearing the analogy, but after Donald Trump, I'm more convinced than ever if he wanted to run for German president, he would get elected. In parentheses, it says, in Germany, the president is elected by members of parliament and the representatives of the federal states. The role is largely ceremonial. But
yeah,
if he ran for it in a place like here and how it's going now, dude, he'd win. He'd beat Trump and Kamala Harris.
For sure.
Oh man. But I think he could. Like he's that kind of guy, the same way that like he's a football coach, but they're like, dude, this guy could be a CEO of a company. Like the way that he just
They had said that, yeah.
And it's not an authority on history because it's two comedians, but I listened to Louis C.K. Shane Gillis like series, and they like talked about every president, and Louis C.K. likes presidents, and he went on to define how the term president's like you preside, like you're not this leader in the sense of we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. It's called president because you preside over what's going on, over there's
so what's
there's
the
a lot of
definition of preside?
just kind of like overseer. You're facilitating things. It's why I'm thinking like as a guy like Klopp being a CEO, you're not just like dictatorially making things happen. There's all these moving parts, and you're just making sure the oil is greased in here, so the cogs are moving. If something's plugged up, like hey, we got to make sure that a little more attention is going there. It's not just a guy coming in there and barking orders.
Right.
It's a guy who's going to make connections with people who can get it done. You don't need to be the guy who knows how to get it done. You're presiding over these things going on and seeing where the problems are. And that's why I think somebody like it can just be a normal guy, because nobody has all the answers. It can be a normal guy who just knows how to connect and bring people together, because a person who can connect, make real connections, is going to find the people who can do it. Because there's not a guy who is a neuroscientist, a mathematician, an economist, a guy who also knows how to run business, who can balance the books, who can also come up with a 4 to 8 year plan on how to get somebody out of $18 trillion in debt, also be a mastermind in how to, preside over all the 5-star generals we have, to tell them how to run the military. Like, nope, that person doesn't exist.
No.
There's no human being that knows all of that. But if you can preside over people and build that connection with them in the sense where it's actually authentic and not just superficial, and people can have trust in you that you have their best interest in mind, that's what you need. Like
that's the tricky part.
So it can just be a normal guy. It can be a Jürgen Klopp normal guy can be president, and maybe should be. Maybe not him specifically because he's not American, but like we don't need like a guy you believe that has all the answers, because nobody does. Anyway, in a stern interview a year later, he suggested life was about leaving better places behind.
Oh, fuck.
About not taking yourself too seriously, about giving your all, about loving and being loved. I've never heard anybody say
that. Gutted me, dude. God damn.
About leaving better places behind. I've never heard anybody say that that's what life's about, because so many people, and like myself, I can get comfortable, and that means if I'm comfortable, let's just stay here forever. Why change anything? Why do anything?
I feel like that's a very normal thing that most people have in mind. And I've never heard that before.
I know when it was this was written, he was still a Liverpool coach, so
yeah, he's
left better places behind again.
Yeah.
This is Jamie Carragher talking. I would never call him a failure if he did. Okay, never mind. I'm going to start a little bit more to the top. The cop has been too starved of shiny things of late to settle for pure romance. However, deep and lasting love will only take hold of Merseyside if Jürgen Klopp can satisfy more material aspirations. It will be very difficult to win the league. It's much more competitive now than when I played, but that's what he's been brought here to do. That's why he's paid the big bucks, says Jamie Carragher. I would never call him a failure if he didn't win it, however. Raphael Benitez and Gerard Hoylier certainly weren't failures. They won trophies. But if he were to win the league, he'd surpass them. He'd be an absolute god. An absolute god. They would put up statues of him. He's not yet a hero. But I've never heard it like this. Liverpudlians I don't know if that's a Scouser way to say it or not.
I don't
This is
know.
Carragher talking. Had already accepted him as one of their own, Carragher adds. They see him walking his dog in Formby and having a meal in the local pub. He reminds them of themselves. Liverpool is very down to earth. You remember who you are. You remember where you come from. He doesn't blow his own trumpet. He gets on with the job. He's passionate about football. I know he's from the Black Forest, but to me, he's a typical Scouser. And just to reiterate, I would never call him a failure if he didn't, but if he did, he'd be a god. And then I'm going to reread one more thing because he's at Liverpool now and he hasn't achieved anything. But if there's a lesson he's already learned, if everybody is pushing in the same direction, if everybody takes the giant heart of his city into their own hands when getting into the stadium or watching Mainz at home or Dortmund or Liverpool at home to really cheer us on, to step on the gas and to support us with all their might. If we haven't learned that lesson after these many years, I just don't know anymore. And I wrote some notes for myself now because this book doesn't go to where Liverpool had gone. 2018, Champions League finalist. 2019, Champions League final win. 2019 Super Cup win. 2019 Club World Cup win. 2020 league title win, 99 points. 2022 Carabao Cup win. 2022 FA Cup win. 2024 Carabao Cup win. Notable mentions: 2018, 1 point off City, 30 wins, 7 ties, 1 loss.
Wow.
98 points to 97 points. So you know what they did to get that 2020 league title. We'll have to get 99, I guess. 2021, 1 point off City, 28 wins, 8 draws, 2 losses. The times we lost to City, I know we've talked about it. It's kind of like iron sharpening irons. They brought the best out of each other. That, like, man, we have to almost be perfect.
For sure.
Those were title-winning caliber seasons. And I didn't ever... I was sad because it was City. And I didn't like that they won. But even indirectly, without even knowing it, I was happy with my team. Klopp had the effect that he had on the Dortmund supporters, on the Mainz supporters. Because I remember talking with Kyle about it when it happened. I'm just like, but dude, like, what else could they have? Dude, these guys, they had 97
they were
points.
Doing everything.
97 points, man. What do you want from them? Yeah, okay, they needed to win that one game that they drew, dude. But like, they were outstanding all year long.
Yeah, and
one loss, and they didn't win the title. They only lost 1 game. It wasn't good enough to win the title that year. But, dude, I can't ask any more of that, dude. I was watching amazing football all season long. These guys were playing so good.
That's all you can ask for as a fan.
Right.
Right?
Right. But it's just
That's
like
exactly what they did.
The build-up that this book does to what he actually does is amazing because there's no hindsight in the writing of building this guy up. Doesn't get the Champions League, but he already knew how to win titles. Now he gets the Champions League, wins the title of a team who's been
it's not a cliffhanger.
Asking
it's like
for it.
Wait and watch.
And now he's moving on from Liverpool.
Yep, he is enjoying himself in a normal life.
The book of
revisiting
Klopp,
some places.
The book of Jürgen Klopp has closed. And
he brought the noise, man.
He brought the noise. And like I said, I don't really care about monetization at this point. I'm glad the tears didn't come because they came when I was reading. But I needed to be able to read.
Yeah, I think the first time I read it, I was quite sad at the end there. It was tough.
But I'll play this to close us out.
Oh, I know what it is.
There's only one thing that can be played. It's crazy.
Thanks, Kloppo.
No, we're not. There's an 8-minute farewell speech. You can look it up. I'm not going to play it.
Maybe find it in the links below.
Yeah. But obviously what he builds stays. Mainz is still up. Dortmund's still a great club. Liverpool is still flourishing, and the players have all stayed. And, Liverpool just lost, but, I gotta take the lessons from Klopp and not be so upset when Liverpool lose to Forest and be like, what can we do better, and stay behind the team, and just can't stop believing in them, man. And
yeah. I mean, it's... Yeah. He hasn't died. He's still around.
Yeah, I know. He's just a guy who's coaching a soccer team, man. It's crazy how what. That's why I keep saying, like, he's more than just a coach. He was more. He did more than just bring you a footballing
families,
product.
Man. He created football families that are just like cultures. The culture building man.
Some of the most beautiful things that humanity can do. She can show. He really brings to life some of the idealism that is easy to let go of and think is not possible for people to do together. But you can show what happens when 80,000 people actually want to come together and be together and believe, and let's push.
Even for 90 minutes.
Yeah, let's just for 90 minutes push all together.
Yeah.
See what we can do and support the 22 guys, 11 on the field, some on the bench, and it's just lift them up with all of our strength.
Be the 13th man.
Right. Let's try to alleviate some of the weight that they have to carry and encourage them to give everything they have, and when they do it, to show them that we care, and just, make it why it's called the beautiful game, man. If there's anybody who really brings all aspects of the beautiful game, because I could argue that maybe Pep Guardiola brings out the beautiful game, maybe in the play style, really brings out everything that can happen on a pitch in a beautiful way. But I think Jürgen Klopp was able to do that, but also bring it out of the fans and bring it out in the community as well.
A few other dimensions, yeah.
Off the pitch. And I'm not saying there's probably coaches that do plenty of stuff off the pitch and gives to charities. I can only just go off reading this book and what I've learned. So, hey, man, the goal is to read more books and continue to go. So this series has come to an end, but the podcast is ready to keep going, and we will discuss what the next book is. And when you hear us next,
it'll be a new book.
Technically, in the time traveling world of how things get posted, the next thing you will hear is part 8, because part 8 isn't out. This is part 9. So, technically, the next thing out is 8, but by the time you're hearing me say it will be the next thing will be a new book. So thank you guys as always for listening. Like I said, maybe you're hearing the end of this and it was the end of part 2. I haven't looked at how much time, but this is the end of Bring the Noise by the Jürgen Klopp story by Raphael Honigstein. Please support the book. Please,
portrayed, well written.
Yeah, please support the podcast if you can. Leave a like, subscribe if you like it. Don't just do it because I asked. You have to actually like what we're producing. We're going to keep doing it for fun, as we love to do it. But if you ever want to if you need more of it, then the podcast needs support, and that's how all of that works. And we can only do it by being authentic and doing the things that we love and trying to make it better and doing the things that Jürgen Klopp talks about. So the support will come if people like it and we give them a product that's good. And I think the only way to give a good product is if we like it and we enjoy it and we have fun. And that's how I feel. So maybe I won't be as emotionally tied to reading a book about Pirlo, but I love football, so... Yeah. It'll still be awesome.
I have a fun one in mind, but we can talk about it.
All right, then. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.